Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. You might know that normally I like to wear longer skirts, longer dresses, midi dresses, maxi dresses even. But I also have some shorter skirts, but I don't have really a lot. And now that the weather is getting warmer, I thought I was a bit lacking of shorter skirts in my closet, so I decided to make one. And some time ago I made a dress out of scuba fabric and I really liked it. I wasn't familiar with that kind of fabric, but it was really nice to sew with and it was very nice to wear. So I bought some other scuba fabric, but that didn't turn out well because it was this fabric. It was way different than what I had before, than the other fabric. And I bought really, I don't know how many meters, quite a lot. I think 5 meters or so, so that's even more than 5 yards. And it wasn't just what I expected, what I had in mind to make from. So I have this still here. I made, I think, one longer skirt from it, but the rest, it's a thick package of fabric. So I thought, well, I use this for a shorter skirt. And it will be one fully lined, but very easily lined. It's not more work or not more time to line it the way that I do it than when you just normally hem your skirt. So if you have never lined a skirt, certainly watch this video because it's really not that difficult and you get a more polished skirt, I think, when it's nicely lined. And not only from the inside, because you don't see any seams or any raw edges, but also from the outside, because normally your garment will fall more nicely over your body when it is lined. So I like to line my skirts anyway, so I will show you how to do that. And it will be just a normal pencil skirt with a slit in the front, so on the thigh, on the left thigh. So it's a skirt that you can wear when you make it not too short, just for business wear. It's a very nice, simple, plain pencil skirt that you can use for that. But when you make it a bit shorter, or also when you make it just knee length, it's very nice to wear as a casual skirt because the fabric is very stretchy. Also the lining that I use is stretchy, so it's a very comfortable skirt to have. So I show you what my inspirations were and how we're gonna make the skirt. So to give you an idea what we're gonna make, I screenshotted some pencil skirts with a slit, and you see the slit is not in the side seams or in the back, mid-back, which it normally is or often is. We make the slit more on the thigh, so in the mid part. And these are different designs. I will show you when we make the pattern how we're going to make our slit. And of course you can choose whatever length you like. I will be in between the black and the pink one and the blue one. The blue one is a little bit too long to my taste in this design. But of course I will make the slit way lower than all these skirts because I don't really like that. But you can choose how long or how short you want to make your skirt and how low or how high you want your slits to be. For the rest, it's just a plain pencil skirt. I will put a zipper in the side seam. I will not do a waistband. I will line mine because normally I like that more because then your fabric falls more nicely along your body. So I will line it, and that makes it then also very easy to finish the top part of your skirt. So I will show you how the pattern will be. So what you will need for your pattern is your basic pattern for a skirt, and I will leave down below in the description box and up here in the corner how you can make that basic pattern. I have a tutorial about that, and it's very easy to just draw along and then you get your basic pattern to your sizing and body type. So you take your basic pattern and you put that on top of a new piece of paper and you fold that double here where normally your fold for the fabric would be. So here will be your fold, and then you trace that pattern just all around again. And then when you flip that open, I already cut mine, so just pretend that this is still connected. Then you have this, your pattern with the darts here on the top. Then you draw a straight line from the dart going down. I did left and right, but we will only use the one on this side. So this dart, and they put a line straight down. Then what I did, I marked here on the bottom a line because I want my skirt to be shorter than my basic pattern is. So I draw here the line where the hem will end, but I left this piece on because this will be my hem. So this will be folded under for the hem, and it is quite a big hem, a large hem, because I will attach my lining to that. So this is for me 5 centimeters. So when you make the same length for your skirt now, just add 5 centimeters or so for your hem. And then what you do is you cut this open. You see it looks like this before you cut it. You just cut out the dart, so this part, you cut that out, and you cut down the line, so this line. You cut that all the way down, and then you have a left part and a right part. And what I also did, I marked here to where just about I want my slit to end. Then I have a place where I know I need to end my, my stitching. And then you have this. You have these two parts for your front pattern. What I forgot when I cut my paper, I will also want to end 3 centimeters here on the top, because that will be my facing, because we don't put a waistband on. The 3 centimeters goes under, and on that the lining will be attached. So add that to your pattern too, or just as I have to do, mark that on your fabric when you cut your fabric. But make sure you mark it on your fabric before you cut, because it won't be the first time that I forget and I just cut off and I miss my top part and I have to sew it on. So make sure that you mark it well on your pattern when you haven't done that already. So that will be for the front, and you see we have now here a seam that is connected to the dart, and when you sew here your seam, then you just sew your dart and then your seam, and just in one row, and you leave of course here the bottom open for the slit. Then what we have, this is the basic pattern, and the basic pattern is made to your sizing. That means it is made for a woven fabric, so a non-stretchy fabric. When you have use of stretchy fabric, as I will do now, you are working with negative ease, and it means that when you make something out of a stretchy fabric, your pattern has to be a little bit smaller. What I usually do, because then I don't have to make another pattern only because I use another fabric, I will just cut my pattern without seam allowance where it is essential. Of course not on the top, not on the bottom, but like the side seams and other seams, I cut that without the seam allowance. For me that is normally exactly the right measurements when I do that. If you're not sure, just do that and see if you have to take it in a little bit more. You can very easily do that because it's just the side seams and you can just take that in. That's why you always have to try on your garment when you are making it before finishing it. To do 3 or 4 trials when you are sewing to see if it is exactly the right fit. But normally for me, when I cut this without seam allowance, it is exactly right. So I'm going to do that now too. For the lining, I will use that same pattern. The only thing that I'll do is, this will be the facing. I'll fold it now to the outside, it's easier to see. You will cut your lining till here, till where this hemline ends, plus the seam allowance of course. So add an extra seam allowance, but this is the end of your lining. And you do the same here on the top where you have that 3 centimeters, just fold it under or over, and that will be the end of your lining. So not this one, it's the part is where that facing part ends. That is the line, the end, the seam for your lining. Then I will add on this part here where my seam is, and especially because my slit is here, I will give it a little bit more seam allowance. Normally I will give it 1 centimeter, now I will give it 2 or 3 centimeters, because then you have more seam allowance to put under here, and that looks more nice when it opens up in the winter when you walk, that you first see your same fabric as the outer fabric and not immediately the lining. I don't think that looks nice, so give it a little bit more of a seam allowance to have that as a sort of a facing for your slit. You can do it all the way up. I will not do it here on the dart, because then it gets a little bit much fabric here on the top, but you can certainly do it here for that side seam. Then you just iron it open and it lays nicely flat. So do that for that part. No seam allowance for me, at least, because of my fabric on the side seams. And then for the back, you will just use your same pattern as your basic pattern. Only thing, of course, is take off here the bottom. I will mark that. Here you will also take that off, that same amount, for your facing for the lining. And then here again, no seam allowance here on the side seam. This will be on the fold, which is normally not, because normally we have here a seam with a zipper, because I put the zipper on the side seam. I cut my pieces and I wanted to show you what I did for the lining, because I used the same pattern for the lining. But you see it is way smaller, and it is because we have here our, I will call it the facing for the top and the bottom. The facing here, the edge will connect to the top of the lining, and you see when I fold it over, I have the pins here now so I cannot put it flat. This is where it's attached, and that is why the lining is this much shorter. And the same here for the hemline. The edge of the hem will be attached to the edge of the lining, and then you have nicely this hem or facing like piece on the bottom of your skirt. So all my pieces of lining are way smaller than the outer fabric. So what we're going to do now is we're going to sew all the darts in the outer fabric and in the lining pieces. And if you're not sure how to sew darts, I have a special tutorial about that, how to do that. I will link it up here and down in the description box where you can find that video. I always put my pin just straight in, my downward pin, and then you connect these two together and you pin them together with a new pin. And then when you pull on this bottom one, you have a nice straight line and you can sew that down. So now we are going to sew our last dart, and that is the one here with the seam that we made. So you put the left part on top of the right front part, and then you sew the top part here, which was the dart, then the side seam, and I marked here where I want my slits to begin, so you sew till here. And I made my markings because I have different seam allowances here at the slit, at the seam, and at the dart, where I need to show what my line is for the seam. So we're going to sew that. Now we're going to our side seams, and it means we have to put in our zipper. I will put in an invisible zipper. You can also do a normal zipper if you like that more. And when you put in an invisible zipper, you first put in the zipper and then you sew the rest of the side seam. So that's why I'm going to do that. And after that I will do the other side seam, because then you have more room to wiggle with when you have just the loose parts for the skirt. And if you don't know how to put in an invisible zipper, I also have a special tutorial about that. Again, I will link it up here and down in the description box. To do that, you don't need a zipper, an invisible zipper foot. I never used it. In my last video, I tried to, not last, before last. I tried it with an invisible zipper and a zipper foot, and I didn't like it at all. So don't be afraid if you don't have one. Just use your normal zipper foot and watch that tutorial if you don't know how to do it, because you can certainly do it with a normal zipper foot. I like it even more. I will never try that invisible zipper foot again. So we'll put our zipper in, then make the side seams by putting, of course, the back onto the front pattern, right sides together and close that up, and then also close the other side seam up. Now you do the same for the lining. So here the other dart with the seam, leave the slit open, and so the other side seam. So then you close up the last side seam where the zipper is in the outer skirt. So you sew from where you marked where your zipper ends. The zipper will be here. You close up that bottom part of your lining. Then you take your skirt and you put the outer fabric right side out and you put it inside your lining fabric. So make sure your fronts are facing up and you put the skirt inside. And then you match up the side seams and the darts and you pin the top of your lining fabric to the top of your outer fabric. And you just line everything nicely up, that it's all connecting. And you pin it all the way around, so that your whole outer fabric is pinned onto the lining fabric, so the whole circle. And of course here you have an opening, because here is where the zipper is, and this is the opening of your lining fabric that we're going to sew later on by hand to the zipper band. Then you have something like this, both connected on the top of the skirts. Then you flip your lining into your skirt and then flip your skirt one side out. So this is now the inside of the skirt. Here, this is where you attach the tops together. And then what you do is you reach here in between where the slit is and you take the bottom of your lining and the bottom of your hem, or the end of your hem together, and you line them up so they are just the same at the same edge. And then you can pin your lining to your skirt. This is of course right sides together, because you go inside and you flip it like this. Then you can pin this all the way around. You just pull your skirt through itself and then automatically you come at the other end of your hemline. And what I always like to do, I like to sew here the slit and the lining on top of it by hand, because then when you haven't got really straight, you don't have your lining pulling or anything, because you can adjust it with here just hand stitching your lining to the facing of your slit, and then you get a more nice result. You can also sew that down, but I don't really like to do it, so I just leave here a piece open a little bit less, a little bit more than this. This is a bit too little for me. So something like this. I leave this loose, and then I'll just sew here the whole hem and lining together all the way around. So now this looks like a whole mess, but you just turn it right side out again and just flip it, flip it, flip it, and eventually you will just get your skirt back. Now it's the wrong side out, that's okay too, because I want to show you how to finish here the slit part. Just I'll take it nicely out, and then what you best can do is first press nicely here your hem, that is a nice and crisp line, and then you also know how to make here your slit nicely finished. So you have it like this. You have here your zipper where you have to hand sew your lining just onto your zipper band, just sew that all around. Then you press here the top part very nicely, that this is a nice and crisp edge here on the top of your skirt, and then of course here on the hem. Then what you can do, what I always like to do, is make this a nice, like you can do it like this and then hand sew it like this, and hand sew here the top, the slit till the top, and then on this side. See, I made the slit in my lining way higher than my skirt. Here is the ending of for the skirt, and here's the ending of the lining. But it doesn't matter, because when you finish it like this, it looks very nice. But you also can do what I always like, is finish this in a corner. Then it's not that harsh. You can cut off here the excess fabric. Just put it in a nice edge like this, and then hand sew it here, and then hand sew here, connecting nicely your lining to the facing of your slit, like this. Also of course for the other side. And then the only thing you have to do is put here on the top of your zipper a hook and eye. I ran out of them, so I have to order them first, so I cannot do that. I will do that later on. But then you have a little bit more security when your zipper might break, that your skirt still will be attached to your body. So do that, give it a good press first, top and bottom, and then hand sew these pieces. And what you can do, if you see that your top part doesn't stay nicely put, maybe it will roll down, you can of course stop stitching, but because we made it like this, you don't see any stitch lines from the outside, and I like that very much. So you can do it, but I would advise, when it won't stay nicely put, just stitch in the ditch here where you have your seams. So your side seams, your darts, those are all points where you can do a stitch in the ditch that you don't see it, and that you just can attach here the top part of your skirt where the facing is. When these pieces are attached and you have quite a bit of these seams, then your top will stay nicely put, and you don't need any stitching here on the top of your skirt, because I think that's a shame of the nice finished finished product that you made. So I'm going to do that, press that, hand sew that, and then I will show you the end result. So then when you have hand sewn all your pieces, you have a nicely finished skirt with no seams or no stitching visible, because it is all nicely enclosed under the lining. So then give everything a good press, and then your skirt is done. And the skirt became a very cute one. It's pretty short for me, but I really like it. I like the slit. And you can wear this casual like I do now, just with a shirt, but knotted up. And I have, you can see it, but I have those espadrilles on. And it's a nice skirt. And when you don't make it too short, you can also wear this very nicely for business wear. Because it is a nice and plain skirt that looks very professional when you style it with a nice blouse, even a blazer, some pumps or some flats. And then you look really nice. And I think it's a very versatile piece to have, very nice to put on, and it's stretchy, it's nicely lined so it doesn't show anything underneath what you're wearing underneath. And I like this one, so I hope you like this video too. I hope you like the skirt. If you have any questions, as always, leave them down below in the comment section, and I'll see you again next time. Bye, thanks for watching.